Welcome to Don't Fuck This Up, the podcast answering the ultimate question, how the fuck did you land that cool job? I'm your host, Lauren Alvarez. Hello, happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of Don't Fuck This Up. Today's guest has been featured on CBC, SiriusXM, and Just for Laughs. She's cute, she's hilarious, she has a comedy special on Out TV called Out for Laughs, and 2 comedy albums called Purse Wine and Table Wine. It's writer and stand-up comic Tamara Shevon. Tamara, welcome to Don't Fuck This Up.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Toronto's finest. Very happy to have you. I mean, it's kind of feels minimal to even intro you as a stand-up comic because you're obviously doing so much more than that. And one tiny look at your Instagram would just tell everyone you were on the road for the entire month of February, which is very cool. I definitely want to talk about that. Before we get into the hecticness, how are you?
Oh, it's honestly, I'm doing pretty good. The eclipse, I feel like, changed my energy completely.
Yes.
I know that sounds stupid, but I feel better.
Yeah. We kind of needed that like rinse and start over situation.
Yeah, I think it's doing the opposite for some other people I know, but for me, I feel rejuvenated. I know that other people don't, but it's just been me, my tarot deck, my crystals, and the eclipse.
Love that. You have the candles behind you. I mean, you've got a whole vibe going on today. And I mean, I think I personally have been feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde much more than the eclipse. It has been fucking my shit up.
Can we talk about how every single person is coming out of the woodwork out of nowhere these days? Just being like, hey, long time. I'm like, yeah, and let's make it longer.
Yeah. So wait, who's the most random person that's come out of the woodwork?
3 of my exes have messaged me this week.
Ew. No. I'm just going to block.
One of them just said, I just wanted to see how things have been. I had a dream about you, which the dream about you thing is always just bullshit.
It's sexual.
But, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, was it a dream where I was like a humanitarian and I was like at a soup kitchen? Because if it's not, like, stop thinking of me.
It was your face, but Mother Teresa's body. And I just really, there's something really hot about that. Yeah.
Honestly, I have dated too many Aquariuses. They just love the Mercury retrograde. They love coming out of the woodwork.
Well, maybe it's dating Aquariuses that is a real problem and not the retrograde, but I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying, as a Libra, I tried. Everyone's like, Aquarius, you're compatible. I learned at like 21, not a thing.
You're like, I love Libras, but like, you guys love that energy about like, you're into yourselves. You love that. You're flirty. You're aloof to the fact that your partners are mad at you for flirting. I love that. But you're good people. Seen. I can tell you every fight you've had with any of your partners just by now.
So what's your sign?
I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm just as bad.
Okay, so yeah, so fire. You've been in a long-term relationship. What's your partner's sign?
He's a Virgo. It's very strange. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm married to a Capricorn, so I was very surprised. Married best by a landslide relationship from the day we met. It was like, oh, there you are. And it was very easy in the sense that like we're both really into it. But I would say there's probably some other elements there. Like he's a double Cap, but he has a Libra moon.
Ooh, so, okay, so you connect well on like the way you communicate. Well. Mm-hmm. Your love is the same love.
Exactly. It's a pretty cool thing though, because everyone was like, a Libra, Capricorn, run. And I'm like, run toward this man.
Capricorns are very good once you get older. When you're like 20, 21, you're like, these Capricorns are so intense.
Yes,
but like,
totally.
as you get older, you're like, who's doing our taxes? You are.
No, I am actually.
Are you? You know what? Libras are also the spreadsheet people. Anytime you go on a trip, they're like, and here's what we're doing step by step. So
yeah, I mean, perfect. I got a lot of Virgo happening, a lot of organization. I mean, you said you liked the intake form for the podcast. That's just the beginning, baby.
Oh, I like when people tell me what I need to do. As a Sagittarius, I just wake up and I'm like, hopefully someone's planned this for me because I'm
just out here trying to exist.
Literally.
You pack a suitcase. It's a bikini top. You've got leather pants. You've got platforms. We don't know where you're going.
I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm going to make it to the airport.
I love that. I mean, okay. So when did you know you were funny? Because I'm already having some abdominal pain from giggling and we're 5 minutes in. So when did you first realize you were funny? You just celebrated 10 years in comedy. I mean, that's amazing.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So this wasn't a newfound thing because I know everyone wants to be a comic overnight, but When did you
You
realize
know
this was a
what?
thing?
I was like always kind of like the person making jokes and whatever in my friend group. I was always writing things down and like in my phone and
Yeah.
making like boards of all the funny things that we did. And then I moved to China and there was nothing that was funny about that.
Like, that just took a hard left turn.
Well, I didn't prepare. So I just was like, oh, they speak English there. I'll just get there. Everything, chicken balls, everything. First of all, there are chicken balls in China, just letting everybody know.
Okay.
That is not a real thing. That is an Americanized thing that they put into our minds that are like, that's Chinese food. Not true. The
Okay.
food's way better in China. But I got there and I realized I can't speak any of the language.
Oh, so wait, what was the impetus for going to China? I'm going to need a little bit more context.
Oh, okay. So I was a global studies professor out there.
Okay.
So I moved there. So I did teachers college and I moved to China to teach at a university.
I love that. Because I was like, this could be really Sagittarius of you just to be like, you know what? I'm going to China.
Well, I did leave in 13 days. I took my course. I graduated, and then everyone was like, "What's up?" I'm like, packing. They're like, "For what?" I was like, "When I come to my going away party next week, I'm literally moving to China in 13 days." They're like, "Sorry?" So yeah.
So didn't learn the language, didn't get any chicken
No.
balls, but you did get into comedy.
Yeah, because I would just go and watch comedy shows. That's the only thing that was like in English in the beginning that I could go to that was actually like, okay, I feel like I'm not on the other side of the world. And then all the things that were happening to me in China, I was like, I gotta write this down. So I'm bored of all the crazy things that would happen. Like people taking pictures of me 24/7, shoving their babies in my hand, then giving me money to take pictures of their babies. I made enough money to have dinner one day.
Just
like
taking pictures with babies.
Just taking pictures with babies.
Have you thought about running for political office? Yeah.
You know what? It's so crazy. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a politician.
So this was like you were in your bag. You were like, I'm shaking hands and kissing babies, literally getting paid for it.
Literally. No, I wanted to be a politician. I turned down my scholarship to go and do political science. They were giving me like $15,000. I was going to like go and get half of my school paid for. And then I decided to do communication studies and global studies instead. And that led me to China. So being out there and all the crazy things that were happening, writing them all down, and finally everyone was like, you should try doing stand-up. And then I did my first ever set on my birthday in 2013. Whoa. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So 10 years in, what is the thing that you remember most from those early days of comedy? Because it is nerve-wracking getting up there, but you're in a foreign country. There must be some freedom to not knowing anyone, I'm guessing. But then also you have a little bit less context on the culture and what might resonate.
Yeah. So we had like government officials that would come in and like secretly sit in to make sure you weren't talking negatively about the country, which I didn't know. Thank God I didn't know because I was just really out there. But the thing that stuck out the most, I think, is I used to throw up before every set that I had for like 6 months, the point where I told the doctor, like I told the dentist, and they're like, you're going to erode all your teeth. You got to figure out a new way to do stand up. You can't do this.
Okay.
So I got so nervous. It was psychological after a while. I started thinking to myself, like, if I don't throw up, then I won't be funny. So it kind of became this whole connection. So it was like I was having fun, but I was also in a really rough spot, like physically.
Yeah. I mean, and also when it's affecting your health, I mean, as they say, like the body keeps a score, it's like you can't get away from sort of what your body's telling you. When did you make the call? Did you either stop doing comedy or did you stop spending time in China?
I didn't take a break. I moved to Toronto up until I did my headlining set in China. I was still throwing up for every set. It was such a reaction that I couldn't control. And then also like drinking on top of it. If I had a drink, then it'd make me so much more nauseous. And I think once I got home, it kind of stabilized a little bit because my friends were there in the audience and they were there like to be a bit more supportive. But it took me a year to get out of that. It just kind of It just kind of happened one day. They were just basically like, you're going to have no teeth in 3 years. So I don't know what's going on.
You were like, okay, so I could give gummers or I could do comedy. I can't do both. Yeah.
Literally.
Literally. I mean, that is amazing. And when you think about like those early performances coming back and having that community, I mean, something I always love to talk about on the show is just like who supports you when you're making those big transitions, who shows up for you, who's your personal board of directors, as I like to call it. You know, it's like, who can you text and be like, I need a hype up right now? And is that same group of friends that was there when you moved to Toronto following China, or is it evolved over time as you've done comedy?
You know what? My day ones, like so I have a group of 5 girl best friends. We've been best friends since I was 13 years old. They've just been like, they've been the rock the whole time. They're the ones that are always like, they're perfect because they love me, but they don't get how intense comedy is.
Yes.
So when I explain things to them, they're like, yeah, but it'll be fine. Like everything just rolls off for them. So they don't really get the like severity of it,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice. Because then it doesn't allow me to like stew. And they're like, you'll be fine. You're funny. It's cool. Figure it out. And then they just keep it moving.
I mean, I think that's great. I think sometimes having like not having the context of what you do, but just having the context of, you know, the people who I like to say like know your guts, like the people who really get you. And they're like, Tamara, we've been doing this forever as friends. Why are you worried about getting up there and telling some jokes? We know you're funny. You know you're funny. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm funny. Just fuck it.
Yeah, and honestly, like we grew up in like the hood of Toronto.
Yeah.
So like they're not kind of people that would sugarcoat. Like if I got off stage, be like, not your best. I've seen you do better, but like whatever, you'll be fine. Like they're always just like, you'll be okay. Who cares? Because they don't have the mentality of like, this could ruin my career. If I feel like I've done so badly, I might never want to get on stage again. They're like, what? Why? We fuck up all the time.
So I think that that's a really interesting concept of like the concept of bombing. And, you know, I had a little taste of doing stand up. I was a theater kid. So I was like, I can do it. And it's really fucking hard. I mean, I was doing bringer shows in New York and I wanted to just punch myself. And, you know, it's a lot of men who are very aged out of the category of doing stand up. And so they're like, I know, I'll tell all these like young women what to do and how to bring people to shows and 2-drink minimum and da 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 da. You know, you've been there. But that feeling of bombing, and I have a really particular memory that I remember so well of doing a set, killing it. And I never felt more alive. Like everybody was laughing. Everybody was engaged. My crowd work was electric. I was like, oh my God, this is like what I'm supposed to do. And literally did the same set the next venue, and it was like a crowd of dusty books. There was no reaction. Nobody got it. And I was just so shocked. I bombed so hard. And I was like, was it what I ate? I don't know what it was. But it was like, I was so devastated. And I didn't have people around me who got comedy. They were just like, well, it's okay. Maybe you're not meant to do it. That's what my friends said. So maybe it was that moment I needed new friends. But it was a really horrible feeling. And to shake it off was like, it took a minute. So
yeah.
Can we talk about like when it doesn't go great? Like when you aren't killing it, when something isn't landing, like how do you get yourself kind of back on track?
You know what? I haven't had like a really bad bomb in a while, but the worst bomb I had was like, I mean, 3 or 4 years ago. I remember where I was, but you ever see like a Christmas Story where like he's floating around his own life? Yes. That's what I felt like. I was like, there's no way you're bombing this hard. Like I was like telling myself in the higher ups, like, look at you right now. Like no one is getting this. I literally felt like I was in that movie. And
oh my God.
I was like, I can't believe how bad this is. I like all my friends were trying to be like, it wasn't that bad. And I was like, you don't get it. I was like losing my mind. And I had to go and do a show the very next day and open for someone. And I was like, how am I going to go open for somebody when I just bombed so hard? But you just need to shake it off right away. It's like just going in and being like, okay, I'm just going to do it again and like hope that it's better. I don't know. I can't honestly tell you if I bombed the second night, if I would have been okay.
Yeah, right? You gotta be like, you get like a one show. Okay, I can bomb every once in like 100 shows at this point. Like you gotta like, yeah. Or just like working out new material, you're like moving on. And I always have so much respect for folks who can keep it moving. It's like something doesn't land and they can just kind of keep going with it. And I actually love witnessing when a comic is working out new material and you can kind of feel that. And then when it doesn't land, they just keep it moving because it's like you can't get caught up in that one reaction, that one joke.
Can we talk about how that's my biggest pet peeve in comedy when people acknowledge how things aren't going well or how they wanted it in a set. It's so cringe. I actually came up to her just like, well, that worked last night. I'm like, what? It's not last night.
And also, why are you showing your hand? Like, why are you telling people that?
Sounds like something you should write in your diary, babe. Like, I don't care. It's like everyone paid $20, so they don't care what happened last night. It's tonight.
It's tonight. And I actually had been at a show where a guy just walked off the stage. He literally just left in the middle of his set because he just was like, I don't know if he just freaked out, something happened. He just bounced. And then he came back up in the middle of somebody else's set and decided that he was ready. And they were like, can you just...
Excuse me?
This was at Dangerfield. This was in New York. This was like a very wild experience. And I was like, excuse me? Like everyone was like, this guy. And luckily, like the host was like, this motherfucker. Gonna get him out of here.
As if you're like, actually, let me give it another shot. Like, what?
I'm sorry, your 6 minutes or whatever the fuck they gave you has gone. You were shown the light, sir.
As if you come back. Like, the audacity of some people. Like, first of all, clearly that man has not been embarrassed enough. Because that is way more embarrassing than just bombing.
I know. Like, don't you have some personal level of accountability and shame where you can just say, like, you know what? It wasn't my night.
If there's something I've learned that a lot of people do not have in comedy, it is shame. A lot of people have no shame. Like, I don't really get it. I don't get it. You could just be like going out doing jokes that you know are just like controversial, but like you've never even landed a solid 10 minutes without bombing, and like now you want to take on like hot takes. Like, here's a hot take. Maybe you should quit comedy.
I mean, so let's talk about that, because I think that there's definitely a lot of people who see comedy and they're like, I could do that. And like, that annoys me more than anything when someone doesn't respect like the hard work and the amount of writing and the working out material and just the years. I mean, 10 years of coming into, your craft, it's not overnight. And so someone who kind of minimizes it and they expect they're going to go from 0 to 1,000, they're going to be touring the US, they're going to get a Netflix special, whatever. That is like the 1%. Like, there are very few people who can go to that level. I think Hannibal Buress was one of them. He like blew up overnight, right?
Love Hannibal Buress.
Me too. And I think like he was an exception, not the rule. So let's talk about, you mentioned your pet peeve, but let's talk about it. Like, having to grind, having to show up day in, day out. Like, for you, what does that look like for you? Like, as you prepare for shows, how do you kind of get yourself into the zone? And what's annoying about people who don't respect that?
Okay, you know what? That's a really good question. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on like hot ones. Like, you're like giving me those.
We're gonna give you some. The wings are coming. They're just over the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Your doorbell rings. You're like, damn, she's good.
My gosh. I feel like a lot of people have this like perception that I did a lot of things and just like kind of blew up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And came up overnight. And that's not what happened. I worked really, really hard. And I think that a lot of it was like being nice to people and having grace with the way that you spoke to people and not having that like superiority complex, not trying to cut corners. So a lot of people cut corners when they start comedy. They're like, I don't want to have to like answer to these pros. I don't want to have to like, ask these people for help. Me and my friends are funny. I'm already killing it. I know what I'm doing. And then they skip this huge step where we're like, me and my friends are going to start a show, and that's how we're going to get it done. And then they're going to notice us and see how well we're doing. And it's like, well, you're going to have 7 minutes for 5 years. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real.
Right? And so it's like those things, like having people acknowledge you and like actually help support you and bring you up comes with like writing all the time and like testing those things out, saying thank you when you get a spot, going to a show and watching the whole thing, not leaving when you're 2 years into comedy to go do 5 different spots and disrespecting every room, like acknowledging, like, but like giving money to the bar when you're going and being at a show and like buying a drink. You know what I mean? Like writing a message saying thank you after a show. That's how you get these things. Like starting your own show. Yeah, sure. But it's like getting people that aren't just your friends on it, getting pros on it that are going to help like even out like the imbalance of what the show is going to be. And then like learning from people and like watching and like having a schedule. Like, when am I going to post this? When am I going to post this? Like, when is my show going to be? How am I going to make this something that's different? Like, I make sure that I had like a theme of what I was doing when I started my own show. I did like a booked. I had 2 open mics. I had 2 booked mics that I ran for 4 years, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, but it's the only way it got better. Like I
Yeah.
hosted the show. I had 17 comics on one, and then I had 10 comics on the other one. And so every Tuesday, no, yeah, Tuesday, every Wednesday and every Sunday, I had booked mics. My inbox was flooded with people messaging me constantly. It's so annoying. I already hate getting back to messages. You obviously know that.
Yes. I wasn't going to call you out, but yeah.
I have like a weird anxiety about messages. Like I have to be like in a zone. I like don't like to like give a part of my time and not finish my conversations. So
1,000%.
I have to get like, yeah, so it's like I have to set aside that time. And so I mean, I just was kind of doing all that stuff in the beginning. And my first set ever, one of I don't know if you know who Trix is. He's like now he's like really big.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, I don't think he's new, but newer to me.
Yeah. So now he's really big, and like the first thing he said out to me when I like smashed one of my first sets at Comedy Bar in Toronto, he was like, "Great set, but let's see how great it is when all your friends aren't here." And I was like, "What?" And everyone's like, "That's so." Everyone's like, "That's so rude," but he didn't mean it in a rude way. He just meant like you have a lot of self, like the false sense of self right now,
Yeah.
and like have that set work in a room where none of your friends are, and then you'll know what it actually is.
Yeah.
And so like those things, like taking criticism and like learning to like shape that into something that's constructive instead of being so butthurt about everything. I find that everyone's always so like they feel things so deeply that aren't that deep.
Yeah. You're like, it's not that deep. It was just feedback. And also, it's just feedback. You don't have to take it. Feedback is just that. It's feedback. It's offered up information. If you choose to ignore it, go for it. But most of the time, if it's somebody who has more experience, it's because they don't want you to fail, because they want you to be successful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with that, I mean, in mind, like, are you mentoring younger comics now that you've been in it for a while? Do you see yourself giving back to the community in the same way? I mean, you're hosting these shows. That's a lot. But I mean, what other ways are you giving back?
So now I teach stand-up, and I know that everyone says that stand-up can't be taught, but it can, in the sense of like, again, I see both sides. People are like, "Oh, you have to naturally be funny. Going to take a stand-up class is so stupid." But it's like now I work for like the Second City, and like I teach at like Comedy Bar and like Bad Dog Theater, and like the people that are there, like if you give them a direction, they're able to figure it out if you give them a structure to follow, and then they'll get their own style after, right? It's like we all learn how to write an essay, but all of our essays are different. You know what I mean?
1,000%. And I think it's also like just learning, like you said, like the structure, the outline, like what kind of writing, how often you should be writing. I mean, I think like we talked about earlier, people underestimate how much work it is when you're not on stage. You don't just get to go up and wing it. And we've all seen the person who does. And guess what? It's usually not that good. You can feel it. And I think that it's also like you can't write it out verbatim. You can't have a perfect script. It's somewhere in the middle of like having an outline, knowing how you're going to connect your topics and then going from there. But you have to consider the crowd. I mean, there's nothing worse when you see a comic who's just completely just trying to plow through their material. They've got their 8 minutes and they've got it right, but they can't seem to acknowledge the crowd. They can't seem to be flexible.
Yeah. That's the key thing. Like connecting to a crowd is so, because like what you said is very true. Like when I first started stand-up, I wrote every single word out, word for word, including like breathe here. Like it was nuts. It was nuts. And I would read over it 3 times. That's the way I learned how to study, like in university. So I was like treating it like it was university. And then like finally one of my friends was like Alex Wood, he's like one of my best friends. He's also a comedian. He was just like, you have a really great personality already on stage. Don't cloud it with this whole, like, it looks like you're trying to remember something.
Yeah. And you can see the wheels turning when someone's doing that. You can like, it's written all over their face. They're just like stressed out trying to be like, oh, wait, I already did that. Okay. They're like glitching in the mainframe.
Yeah. And then like my biggest fear would be like, what if I froze on stage? And I see people freeze on stage. And it's always because they're like, I can't forget every specific line. And it's like, those lines don't matter. It's the essence of what you're talking about that matters. You'll figure it out. Like for me, the more I do it on stage, the more I just like remember how I said it. And I just will like, it's like muscle memory.
Yeah.
And if some people don't have that like luxury, I'm happy that I do. But the reality is that like, if you are trying to remember things like it's a script, it's going to sound like one.
Absolutely. I mean, so I'm an executive coach, and a lot of the things that I coach on and that I, kind of the principles, it's the same vibe. It's like I'm coaching on the same principles. I'm helping leaders to get a little bit more transformational, to actually show up and say things that people care about hearing. There are certain things that I'll say that certainly are part of what I teach. So it's not scripted, but there's a structure to it, but it's going to be a different interpretation. Maybe my intonation's different that day, or maybe I asked them a question in the middle of it because it felt appropriate. But it is, I mean, similarly, it's, I am getting the essence of what I'm saying across, and that's what makes it me. That's what makes it my coaching versus like something you read in a book.
100%. Like, that's actually really good that you said that, 'cause that's something that I feel a lot of people are so obsessed with filming their sets these days. Like, all the time, filming their sets, everything. Like, I go to every show, there's like 9 tripods up. I'm like, this is nuts. And everyone's like, well, you should record. And it's like, a part of me feels, I guess, old school. I want that, even if I'm telling jokes that I've been telling already before, there's always going to be something different. And I want that experience to be for that audience that's there at that time.
Yeah.
I want it to be like if 2 people went to a show that I was at, and even if it was like I had certain jokes that were the same, I want them to feel like their experience was different than the other person's.
Yes.
And it's like when you go to a concert, I don't want to hear your cookie cutter concert, or else I'll just listen to you on Spotify. Like, what's different?
Right. 1,000%. And I think that's interesting, because when it comes to, I was going to ask, I mean, having been in this, since, 10 years ago, we weren't using social media in the same way. Yes, it existed, but I mean, Instagram was not a thing that people were posting their comedy sets on, or video or anything. How has that landscape really transformed the way that you are sharing your comedy, that you're, posting? Like, when do you decide to post something versus keeping it for that audience specifically?
I hate posting. I hate it so much. It takes
You're
a lot.
consistent though. You're very consistent. So I have to applaud you on that, because you hate it.
Well, if you actually take a close look, what I do is I mix in elements of my life to make it look like I'm a real person.
Yeah.
And then I'll slide in a clip, so that's look, I'm still doing this, but people posting a clip every day, I don't want it to look like when I go to my page, I don't have a life outside of comedy.
Yeah, totally. I think it's hard because your comedy is your name. And so kind of what are the boundaries, that you uphold when it comes to what you share? I mean, you share things about your personal life or your relationship or your, I saw it was your mom's birthday. I loved that you posted that. It was so cute. Happy birthday, mama. But, I think it's so sweet, but it's like holding back on certain things that you want to share versus posting everything. We've all seen the oversharer. But blending in the person, do you feel like that gives kind of more of I'll say 360 to who you are? So when Tamara's on stage, it's not just Tamara the comic, it's like a dynamic individual that is represented. Is that what you're hoping for?
I'm hoping for that so much. Honestly, I want it to be an experience, even going to my page to be oh, you can kind of follow what my life is like, but not too deeply. And then you can come to a show and get more insight.
Yes.
But my boyfriend's a very private person, super private, crazy private. And so I tell jokes about him on stage a lot, but I don't like posting a lot of stuff about him online, because people started trying to add him and follow him and think that because they know him through my jokes that they know him. And he's not that kind of person.
Yeah.
And
there's always one in the relationship that's that, and then there's one that's us. Yeah.
Literally, truly, right? And so I've had to get a balance on that.
Yeah.
Because I just think that, and you want to leave a little to the imagination. It's just, I can't.
Yes.
I find it weird when people catch up with you in person and know everything because you've already posted it.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's so strange. I mean, I have a kid. He's almost 8 months. And it's the craziest thing, because people feel like they know what's going on in my life. And I don't really, I have a private account for a great reason, because I don't want people to know everything about me. So for my personal account, it's people who I know or people who I interact with or have interacted with that I feel have permission to see that part of my life. But I'm super private about it. And now that I have a kid that I sometimes post every once in a while, on the grid or on my stories, it's I'm definitely not going to be a public profile.
This year was the first year, February is when I first made a close friends list, because I was oh, I used to just post whatever to everyone.
Yes. And
then I was oh, someone was I hope that's your close friend story. And I was oh, I don't have one of those. It was actually Daniel while we were on tour. And he's I hope that's your close friend story. And I was close friend story? He's you don't have a close friend story? And I was I guess I should.
Yeah, as people are screenshotting whatever you posted, you're like, oh God.
Yeah, like, especially because it's like, yeah, we had some issues with Airbnb, and I was like documenting as it was happening. He's like, that used to be on those flights.
Yeah, private investigator just out here documenting.
Yeah, well, it looks like they did it on purpose. It's like, oh yeah, shit, I gotta put that in close friends.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's interesting because people really want to know and they get that. I mean, there's kind of that like parasocial relationship where they feel like they know you. And then, have you had that experience with come up to you at a show and they kind of spit out everything and you're like, I'm sorry, what was your name? I've never met you in my life.
Yeah, that's happened to me a lot.
Yeah.
That's actually why I stopped posting Ivan as much, like my boyfriend, because they were like coming up to him when we would be out together and be like, oh, then you did this, and like, how was camping when you did this? And he's like, who is this? And I was like, yeah. He's like, can you not just post our whole life? And I was like, right.
Like, how to scare your Virgo, yeah.
Yeah, literally. How to lose your boyfriend in 1 hour.
I mean, when you think about, that's awkward for sure. I was going to ask, what was one of your most awkward stand-up or comedy moments that you've had? I mean, that would be super fucking awkward just for somebody to come up and talk to your partner, not even you, about, what's going on in their private life. But have you had any super awkward moments, not bombing, but more so like interactions or things that you were just like, that was fucking weird?
For I guess what year was that? 20? I got stalked by 2 audience members for like half a year. I got 2 restraining orders.
In Canada?
Yeah. In Canada. Yeah.
Wow. So they were just like a little bit too far. It was like, what is it, swim fan?
It was literally like, so because I post all of my like shows that I have for the month, so they just start showing up to every single one.
No.
And then like if I wasn't talking to them, they'd be like, oh, well, why aren't you talking to me? They'd send drinks my way. And then it's like, well, that's creepier. Like, what's in these drinks? And then it was, I had a show that was right by my house, like my mom's place, back when I lived with her. And they showed up all the way on like I was like out of Toronto. They showed up to the show and like I was like leaving and they were like, why won't you talk to me? This is so weird that you're like ignoring me. I was like, I cannot believe I have to go get a peace bond right now. But I had to. It was nuts.
That's so scary. And I think also just like back to like privacy and just like being able to, when your name is your brand and is your work, it's really hard to draw those boundaries. And you're trying to be as, you want to be cordial. You don't want to be like filmed secretly, like freaking out on someone. But at the same time, I mean, that's your protection. That's your safety. That's your mom's house. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, right?
That's so wild. People have no fucking boundaries.
No boundaries. And so that was actually pretty scary.
Yeah.
And it was like, there was a line of being too, because I used to be really friendly, like really, really friendly, like have my glasses of wine, have a great set, chill, talk to the audience members. Cause I'm like, these are people that are like supporting me.
That's what you get for being nice. Yeah.
That's what you literally, it's so hard being nice out here.
And cute and amazing.
Nice
yeah.
And cute.
Yeah.
Just like, you might just wind up with a couple stalkers.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. We heard you. Yeah. So when you're working out, kind of what you want to do in terms of like your year, I mean, when did you really find your niche like in comedy? Because I think let's talk about being, a woman in comedy. First of all, I think there's so many misconceptions there, but there's also this kind of assumption that everyone's going to be Amy Schumer. Everyone's going to have, this very specific brand of humor. And I think like knowing that there are greats that have been doing this for a long time. And especially when we look at women, there's like examples in industry, of course. How did you kind of differentiate yourself and carve out your niche and, also having respect for people who came before you?
Oh yeah. Like, listen, Wanda Sykes is like my everything. I'm obsessed.
Love her.
I went through a lot of journeys with finding my, I guess, voice in comedy. I started off as a clean comic, which is so funny to look at now because I was living in China and there's like so many like restrictions on the things that you could say. Yeah. You didn't want to like piss anybody off. And
right.
I had enough stuff I could make fun of that had nothing to do with like being dirty or blue or sexual or whatever. And then when I moved to Toronto, moved back home, I kind of just was in that same like realm, but my experiences were different. I was like in this long distance relationship. I was still dating someone that lived in China.
Okay.
And like we were trying to do long distance. That kind of brought in like some new elements. I started telling more stories, kind of like bringing in more like story elements. And then I started getting a little bit dirtier. And then we broke up, obviously, because you can't date someone that lives in China. That's literally crazy. And
Yeah, I was like, tell me how, what were visitations like? Yeah, 0.
well, no, like he came, we went to New York, and we like, it was like this whole thing. Like, it was really weird to be in a position where like I thought I was going to make it work because I was 25 years old. So I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
I've been there. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, of course, we like each other so much, we'll make it work.
This is my person. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my person. It's like I couldn't even tell you where that guy is now.
Right. Isn't that funny? You go from like talking to somebody every fucking day to just being like, I don't know. I hope they're alive, I guess. I don't know.
Hope they're cool.
Yeah.
Truly. I'm just like, I don't know. But so it was nuts. And then so I started doing like, and the story element I was kind of like leaning more into, and that was like, kind of what I started getting into. And then I started realizing that I had a lot of stories, so I had a lot of really crazy things that happened to me. And I kind of started leaning into more like storytelling, stand up, and like kind of finding my voice in that. Being able to like, I'm pretty long winded as it is, so it was a perfect way to figure it out.
I love that. I mean, I think that it's good because I think I have a lot of respect for people who can do the hyper fast. Like I went and saw Jay Jordan recently when he was in LA, and like that man can churn, like he has like boom, 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 and it's all funny. Like but it was impressive, but it was so different from any other comic of like what I've seen of just that like super speed. It was like a speed bag, like boxing a speed bag. That's what it felt like. And then there's other people who kind of, I love like the longer form stories where it's like, that there's something funny coming. You don't know when it's going to hit you. But there's a lot of people who kind of hang out right in the middle, and it's like not fast enough to be speed bag comedy, but it's not slow enough to make me feel like I'm getting a story. And I think that's always a tough spot to be in. So I love that you went longer. I mean, why not lean into it?
Yeah, I find that like I've shortened it up a bit now because I just like, but so I used to just have that be like, I'm doing 2 stories and that's kind of it. But now I kind of have like a mixture of stuff because like, but it's hard to be in that middle that you're talking about. Very few people do it well. Very few people do it like stuff where it's very engaging.
Yes.
Like I love Gerard Carmichael. Like that's kind of the vibe. Like it's like that's exactly what it's like. It's like you can't. It's hard to get that
like sweet spot comedy.
Yeah, right. It's like very interesting. The closest I've seen to that recently, I don't know if you've heard of this comic, but he's amazing. He's like out of Calgary, Faris Hayatia.
But I'm gonna look him up. That's awesome.
Look him up. He's very, very great. He's one of the new people to watch. It's like just really has that Gerard Carmichael kind of esqueness, but like
I love that.
His own spin on it. Very great. So I like watching stuff like that. I love watching comedy though that I can't do, like one-liner comedy, like no matter how it's presented, and like I could never do that. So I love watching that because I'm not even gonna try it. Like I love when people are like, now I'm gonna branch into this. I'm like, that's on you, babe. If you want to do that, that's great. I'm gonna stick to what's good for me. I'm not trying to struggle in my late 30s. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. The late 30s struggle, not interested. I would like to cruise into 40s looking as relaxed and moisturized as possible. That's my goal. I'm just trying to be
like
hydrated.
How many under eye patches can I really buy at this point? Like I'm good. I'm not trying to stress.
Sephora sale ended. We're fucked. Yeah.
That sale was fire.
That sale was fire. It was so good.
Show me the 20%.
Yes. Yeah. Just like I'll get 3 extra things because that adds up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, tour life, let's talk about it because like it's hard to keep your routine, hard to keep your rituals. You're on tour. I mean, the one that I was so impressed about was the one where you're taking the train across Canada. I mean, like, first of all, like calling the Underground Comedy Railroad, love that. But then also just like having it in Black History Month, calling it the month of the Black Dragon. I mean, you really you leaned into it. But then I thought about train travel is not like it is in Europe, even in Canada. It's just not that glamorous. So how do you keep that balance? How do you, talk about that experience, please. But also, like, do you do the under eye patches? Like, what's your self-care on the road?
Oh, yeah. Rosehip seed oil is my jam. Ordinary. I keep trying to get them to sponsor me. Maybe this is going to be the moment.
Ordinary, if you're listening, Tamara needs a sponsorship.
I need it. Like, I can't, like, it's gone up so much. Anyway, but skincare routine, very serious. Like, Eating well on the road is really important because like it's so easy to just fall into this fast food like routine of like not really caring, not working out. Taking a literal train during our underground comedy railroad tour was nuts. Of course, it was the most chaotic experience. Like
I do remember seeing a video. You were literally sprinting through the train station, and I was like, I'm stressed out watching this.
It's so nuts because trains, they don't wait. Like, there's nothing you can do to hold them up. Like,
no,
they're gone. And like, I was really trying to break out of the stereotype of like Black people being late on tour, especially like during Black History Month. And
you're like, this will not be my legacy.
Yeah. The way that I ran, I was like, this is like the sprint of an Olympian. Like I've never, and then I get on there, I'm sweating, and then we're in a section with 5 babies, and I'm like, you've got to be joking. And they're all sick.
and yeah, it's like, and you didn't get paid to hold them? Come on.
But the one was really cute. One of the babies was really cute, and I was like, oh, but like everyone else on the tour is like not like baby friendly. Well, they weren't prepared. Like they were like, I was so hungover that I was like, a baby is making me feel so much better. They were ready to drink, so they're like, I feel bad doing this in front of a baby. It was a whole thing. And then we're on this train for 6 hours going to Montreal. It was a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
But you know what? It's those things like they bring you closer together. Going on tour with people that, because we went to Halifax, and then we had our stops. Wait, what was it? Toronto, Halifax, Montreal, Ottawa, London, Vancouver. Nuts.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And but when we first started doing this tour, when they first started doing it, they were like sleeping on couches, sleeping in cars, like booking at home. I kind of got in on the bougier end of things, where we all like had our own rooms. You know what I mean? I was like, listen, it's like, and so we were pretty bougie with like our food choices. So luckily I felt a lot better than I usually do on tour, because usually like, whatever, it's late, let's get a poutine. Do you know what a poutine is?
Of course. I'm actually Canadian. I'm Nova Scotian. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See?
I do know. Yeah.
Yeah. So like everyone's always like chili cheese fries. I'm like, no.
I mean, also delicious, but not the same.
Yeah, you shit your pants a little less with the poutine.
True.
But it was a whole thing. It was a great experience, but like you do really need to keep up on like getting up early, and then you're also doing promo while you're in the middle of like one of your most hungover days, and like drinking really takes the whole thing, because like everyone wants to like cheers with you, buy you drinks, and then so every time I come home from tour, I'm like, I take most of March to just detox. Lots of matcha.
Yeah.
Lots of matcha, lots of long walks, lots of water every day. Yeah. I feel like I missed that for a whole month.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And I think also just being, a kind of wanting to keep up, and, you don't want to be the only person that's like, I'm actually going to go to bed. It's like, they'll be like, well, she's not fun.
That's why, you know what? I do love that like shrooms are not as intense as they used to be now. A lot of like, you can do like
so you're not drinking, you're just shrooming.
You know what? A little bit of both sometimes, but
everything in moderation, a little balance.
Everything in moderation. Yeah. So all at once and then not at all.
This is late 30s. This is actually how you make it work. How do you have it all? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of microdosing?
I mean, and I do think that it's important to also like stay true to who you are and not really feel like you need to give other people, the opportunity to speak for you. So when you're on the road, when you're doing these things, staying up late, you still have your voice, you still get to say like the things that you want to say. I mean, going back to social and when you're on tour, are you reading the comments? Are you seeing what people respond to? Because you are putting shit in your stories, so people are saying stuff. Like, how much are you paying attention to that? And do you ever let it affect you? I mean, you're human, so it permeates.
I just stopped looking at comments.
Fuck yeah.
A long time ago. I had this one video with ASAP Science where we did like stone science, and so they taught me digestion, and then they got me really stoned, and then I had to like regurgitate the information and explain digestion stone.
We're gonna link that in the show notes.
Oh my gosh, it's a wild video, so yeah, please. Oh my gosh. But the comments were so bad, and read every single one of them. And they're like, oh yeah. And so after I did that, like, I was just like, I can't, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? People were convinced that I was like actually a man. People were saying how gross I was. Like, it was, and I was like taking this to heart. And that's when
taking it in.
I'm like, oh my gosh, is that how I look to people? And then my best friends from like my day ones were just like, who cares? It's YouTube. But they're like 300,000 views. So I'm like going through, it's like watching every single thing, and I was like, what a disgrace to the channel. And I was like, I gotta stop doing
Were
this.
you
like,
responding back?
No,
Okay,
I couldn't respond back. I was like, a part of me wanted to, and then I was just like, honestly, no. And like, that's probably the most hurt I've ever been. And I've dated really shitty people, and so like, that's like, for that to like surpass that was like, okay, I'm gonna.
I think dating shitty people is a rite of passage as a comic, where you are like, okay, I'm going to gain more material. Do you ever let it go a little longer because you're gaining good material? It sounds like you're with a good guy now, so we're not talking about Ivan. Yeah. Ivan, this is not about you. But in the past, did you ever let it just go on a little longer because you're like, this is funny?
Oh, yes. Girl, I dated a full-on homeless man.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Was it like where you didn't know if he was hot and kind of edgy or homeless, or was this like you knew?
I mean, the first time I didn't know for sure that it was like, I was like, ooh, right? No, like we dated twice. It's nuts. And I have a joke about it actually on my album. Oh, it's called Rock Bottom Summer. If anyone listen to that. Yeah. The second time around, I was just like, oh, he's just so hot. And he's like so tan, but it's because he was sleeping outside. And like, so it shows us my house being like, can I shower? And I was like, why wouldn't you already be showered? And then I was like, oh, he's like homeless again. Anyway, now, yeah.
He's like, let's just stay at your place tonight, babe.
Oh, yeah. Look, so when I went to stay at his place, well, because he was staying with a friend at the time.
Oh, no. We
went to his room, and it was like a couch. And he's like, oh, but wait till it pulls out. And it was like a love seat that pulled out into like a shittier bed.
You're like, no.
The couch was like leaned upwards against the wall, so it was like it was like a makeshift Murphy shit love seat pull out bed. And I like
you still had sex with him.
I still had sex with him.
I'm dead.
And I'm like, oh my god.
You're like, this is so romantic. It's like he doesn't have anything, but he still wants me.
Yeah. It's like, oh, he's sharing this part of his life with me. How cute.
He trusts me.
Truly. And my friends were like, hello.
Was this your day ones as well? They're like, we are coming to pick you up.
Yeah, they're like, bro, you can't do this.
I mean, I'm just glad you lived to tell the tale. I mean, this is like not okay.
It was nuts. Now he's like, but then now he's dating one of my old best friends. We're also best friends. Yeah, like, yeah, this is crazy. So he ended up secretly texting one of my best friends at the time while we were all in the same room. Then they both pretended they never met each other or knew each other, and then tried to present it to me like it was like a serendipitous thing, even though it's like I was there when you guys met and that's how you know each other. But luckily I was already dating Ivan at the time, but like they really tried to be like, oh my gosh, I found a person for me. She was like, I found the love of my life. Like, I think you might know him. And then showed me the picture. Like, you think I might know him? Literally cried on your couch. You wiped away my tears. Like, that's my literal ex. Like, it was crazy, bro.
They FaceTime you from the same makeshift fucking couch Murphy bed. They're like, hey.
Oh, like, you better believe he moved in with her. He didn't have a home.
Like, he didn't have a home.
Yeah. I just find it so funny the way that they like gaslit me, being like, no. Like, oh my gosh, no, we just met for the first time that time. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you're like, cool, because I wasn't there.
I was literally there.
That's so bananas. But you have a joke about this, or you have a joke about the other thing?
No, that was like, that never ended up being funny to me.
That was just hurtful. Yeah, it's like, I think that's the thing is like, you can tell yourself that something is really funny, but sometimes it just stings too much.
Yeah, like I'm laughing about it now, but I'm still just like, I cannot believe they literally thought I was that dumb.
Just tears? Yeah, you're like, I'm just laughing so hard.
It's really funny.
It's just so funny. Well, I mean, fuck that, dude. He sounds like the worst. I mean, it's good that you're in a good place now. Do you find it harder to write jokes when you're happy in your relationship and you're in this like balanced, like seemingly, and this is parasocial, like outside looking in, but seemingly balanced, good, happy relationship? Is it harder to write material when things are good? Because I think as an artist, when you hear that with musicians, you hear that with a lot of different, artists that just are challenged when things are going well.
Luckily, both of our families are insane, so I never run out of material.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh. I love that so much. You're like, it's not us, it's them.
It's literally them.
It's literally them. I mean, I think thinking about like, your, kind of influences and what you see around you. I mean, obviously you're getting a lot of inspiration from the day to day. Are there any topics that you're like, I just won't talk about that in comedy? Like some people won't go for politics. Some people won't go for other things. Are there any things that you're just like, I don't talk about that?
Not a big politics person, to be honest.
Yeah, totally.
I don't like, mainly because it's just like I don't really care enough. And
louder, please. Yeah.
I'm like, this whole thing's fake, and I don't know why we're even commenting. Like,
it's not really up to us. I mean, we're gonna vote, but like, it's not really up to us anyways. Like, we know that, right?
Yeah, like I have one politics joke, and it's just about like how funny it is that like every time me and Ivan go to vote, we just cancel out each other's votes because we just like we're on opposite parties, and so there's no point in even going. It's just like, okay, we go just to be like, well, there's a law.
We are.
Yeah, just watch each other's votes out, and then just go home and like watch The Office. Like, okay. Yeah.
That's funny. In our household, The Office is the ultimate palate cleanser. It's like the day has been weird, the world has been, cruel, and we can just put on The Office and go to bed.
Yeah, it's The Office, Seinfeld, and Curb for us. We're just like, whatever.
Yep, just like let it go. It's for us, it's The Office or Peep Show. That's always a classic in our household.
Peep Show is so good.
It's so good, and it's so underrated. I have to credit my husband for putting me on to Peep Show, but it's just so fucking funny.
It's so funny. It's literally amazing. Yes. Everyone needs to watch it. It's free on Tubi. Like everyone, there's no excuse.
Yeah, just go watch Peep Show and then re-listen to this episode 12 times.
Yeah, and then listen to my albums.
And then, listen to Tamara's albums, please. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know I don't get to have you all day. I wish I did. But let's talk about a little bit about like creating your comedy albums and what that process has been like for you. And then, let's promote the shit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I did both of my albums independently, so that's a hard thing to do. You have to get your own sound guy. My first album was like Zoom mics taped to a wall in like the smallest club of all time. But the process was actually very rewarding. It was like nice to have something that is like your literal baby that you built from the ground up. And my artwork was done by my best friend for both my albums. So Paul Thompson, he's amazing. One of my favorite people ever, like literally family. So he painted them like literal full on paint, like oil paints, doing this whole thing. The first album is all about like, I guess just my struggle of how getting into comedy was so broke. Cause you know this, like when you first start comedy, you're just like, everyone's like, why are you doing this? You're gonna make no money. So I was so broke.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to bring wine in my purse to be able to like drink on the way there so I could
I wondered about the name, so it was purse wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because you were literally bringing purse wine.
Yeah, I was literally bringing purse wine. It was the only way. I only had like, I had enough money to get home and like to my venue. And then like, that was it.
That's
and then
real.
Table wine was more like, I grew up, I actually ended up having like things that were like so trashy. Like they've ended up being good things. Like they were good learning lessons, and like Table wine is like kind of like showing the growth of like how I was able to like take the wine and the person actually afford to have it on the bottle on the table, right? Like now I get a bottle on the table. I can buy, I mean, I'm not gonna get crazy with it. It's still the cooking wine. It's the first one on the list at the menu, but like we're buying it.
I mean, the next album is going to be Chateau wine, so like I'm here for that.
Chateau wine is great, actually. I'm about that. It's going in the archives. We're gonna try to figure it out.
Archives, all good. Yeah, totally. I mean, so talk to me a little bit about what can people find for you online? Where should we point them to? Where should they be downloading your albums from? Not streaming for free. Where should they buy them?
Buy my albums on bandcamp.com/Tamara Shevon. They're both there. You can donate whatever you want, which is great. Well, it's a minimum of $12 Canadian, but I'm sure even with the carbon tax, everyone can figure that out.
It's linked here and it's going to be in the show notes and you're going to just go buy it. And I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about carbon tax. Yeah.
Nothing.
I love that. And then you also post on your Instagram.
Yeah, then follow me on Instagram and you can see all my shows, anything that's coming up, clips sometimes.
When you feel like it.
When I feel like it, babe. But it's at Teemair, TEEMAIR.
Absolutely.
And that's the same on Threads and Twitter if we still use that X, whatever that is.
If you're not run out of it by spam bots, then you can find you on X. What can we expect from you next? Are you working on another album? I know you're doing a lot of shows right now, so what can we expect from you?
I'm going to be recording a special in September, so
yes.
Look out for that. And then that will probably come out for my birthday because I love ruining my birthday with just adding full comedy into it. Yeah, so I'm looking to release that by November 27th, which is my birthday, Satch Queen. Yes. So keep an eye out for that.
Amazing. Well, what is one final thought that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Okay, so I guess basically doing things yourself is the best way to get them done and not following the path of somebody else and creating your own thing. That's what makes you unique. And that's what gets people to follow you for who you are. I'm trying to go for a cult following kind of vibe. I don't want to be the most famous person in the world, but I do want to have people understand what I'm doing. So always making sure that you put your effort of like your personality and who you are, like know what you want to have out there and how you want to be perceived. And that will show in your art.
Just being understood. Shout out to being understood. Tamara, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. You're the best.
My pleasure. You're the best. This has been Don't Fuck This Up, the podcast answering the ultimate question, how the fuck did you land your cool job? I'm your host, Lauren Alvarez, and we will talk to you next week. Up is a podcast written, produced, and edited by Lauren Alvarez. New episodes dropping every Wednesday. Be sure to follow, rate, and review this and every episode. And until next week, please keep it together and try your best not to fuck this up.